Ayakui, everybody. Neck now, Skip Lowry. Welcome to the Sumeg Village. I'm an interpreter here, Patrick's Point State Park in the North Coast Redwoods District. I want to thank everybody for joining our Porch home learning program today. It's pretty exciting that we get to come to you guys in your homes, where you guys are at. I hope everybody stands safe and is healthy and getting through these times together. So it's a special day. We're celebrating California Native American Day. We're gonna be sharing a little bit about this special village that we have here. It's a recreated village. You're gonna hear from 3 interpreters today. Very special time we're living in, because it's the first time in history for this park to have Native American interpreters on their pay roster, on their payroll. So that's kind of what Native American Day to me is about. What's always been about is that we have been misrepresented a lot and left out a lot. And in a lot of educational institutions, we are talked about in the past, like we were conquered and we're done and gone. But that is inaccurate. We are a very live and vibrant, thriving culture here in Northern California and all through California, down all the way to our southern border. There are Native American groups that are alive and well and still revitalizing their cultures, their traditions, their sacred sites, and rebuilding the relationships with their geographic place that they were displaced from. Oftentimes it was very violent displacement. There's myths about settlers coming and like settling the land, and it was a wilderness and wild open space. That is a misconception. It is inaccurate. Every place in California had a name, had a Native American name. It was well known, and the relationships between the indigenous communities and their places for 10,000 plus years created such a beautiful landscape in California that when European immigrants first came here, they said they describe it as it looks like a well-manicured garden, which it practically was. It was not a wild wilderness that we were just living randomly in like animals. Native cultures in California specifically have the most sophisticated natural resource management systems in their language, in their songs, in their worldview, and in their engagements with all of the beings that we share this place with. You know, the 4-legged people, the flying people, the insect critters and people, the plant people, the rocks. So today I'm bringing to you a little bit about what I've learned about California Native American Day. When I was little, it didn't exist. There was a lot of other holidays that I remember, like Columbus Day was celebrated throughout school systems. Easter was celebrated, Christmas is celebrated, President's Day was celebrated, it turned into President's Week, but there was never any recognition for the first people of this place, the people who actually created a healthy, balanced world that European immigrants came and exploited. There's been no recognition and sweeping under the rug, so to say, of our cultures. In Native American Studies classes, that's called active erasure. When you're actively erasing someone's stories and histories, not allowing them to be on the payroll at a state park that is on their ancestral territory, is not respectful, and it doesn't complete the story. And now we have that opportunity. So we're in a time of healing, an awesome restoration, and in a sharing process from a very unique special culture, the Yurok culture in Northwestern California. So I'm gonna look over my shoulder here and show you a structure I'm gonna introduce you to. This is Gurk. You say Gurk. Gurk. And that's the sweat house. This here is practically like a school. We go to school nowadays This was an institutional of knowledge passing on, learning what it takes to be a healthy man in Yurok community, a healthy part of the community. This is a big part of our culture that was actively erased and tried to be removed from our culture. So they put us into boarding schools and cut our hair, made us change our clothes. Sumeg Village is really special because for the last 60 years, 70 years, there's been this dialogue and this healing relationship building process between the state of California, who were the curators of a lot of the oppressive re-educational institutions, what they call them, the boarding schools. California has their fingerprints all over that active erasure. They also now, what we're sharing today that's so beautiful, is they now have a fingerprint about actively trying to heal and restore the relationships between two very different worldviews. And many different cultures now live here in the United States, and that's a beautiful thing. So this is one structure of about 10 here that have been restored in 1990 by two groups of Yurok apprentices who were relearning the techniques to split the redwood, to gather and tie the hazel, and how to interpret and share and learn what you've been taught. You know, we have an oral tradition, and so listening and repeating what you've been told is a skill and a talent, and it's an ancient traditional way of passing on our most sophisticated natural resource management systems, like the sweat house. So as a man, as a person who recognizes himself as a man, and saying this, I want to say, I talk about balance when I talk about the sweat. In Yurok culture, from what I've taught, everyone has their own life, and no one gets to tell that person, oh, you have to be this or you have to be that. You honored the people for who they represented, how they walked their path of life. So I speak as a man because that's what I felt and the way I've walked. And there's all that whole beautiful different paths of life, you know, male, female, sometimes how they frame it. It's just a beautiful existence. And so this place helped a lot of the men create healthy emotions, kept their brain smart. You can see all the rocks here. You had to be physically strong to take care of this house. These rocks didn't get here just by rolling themselves. They are heavy rocks that are found down by the ocean or at the river or in the mountains. So you had to carry them here. So it was an integral part of the health and well-being of Native American men. And just a really quick overview of how right now in schools, it's important to articulate to students that Native American people were very, very sophisticated, highly civilized. And in fact, science is just now catching up to a lot of the information and relationships that Yurok and other California Native American cultures have existed and known about since time immemorial, we say, which means before memory. Can't even memorize. You don't have the memory that goes back that far to say this is how long they've been in balance and in tune with their geographic place in a sustainable way. So any questions about the sweat house, please put them in the chat. We're going to have some time at the very end to answer questions. I really look forward to answering as many as we can. We have two wonderful interpreters for you next. And if you ever get a chance to come up and visit Patrick's Point, please do. It's a beautiful place. It's inspiring. And if you're part of the Native community and you can look here, understand this can be done in other parks. Like this is an example of what can be done with sharing and trying to actually build a healing relationship, knowing that there was horrible history towards our people, but we are resilient, strong, and still alive. So I'll send you to the next interpreter now. Appreciate your time. I'll talk to you at the end.
Excellent. Thank you, Skip.
You bet.
And you will occasionally be hearing the voice behind the camera as well. My name is Kyle. I'm a park interpreter specialist with California State Parks as well. Thank you all so much for joining us for our very special California Native American Day home learning program through Ports. We are so happy to be here with you today. So we were just hearing from Skip Lowry. We are doing this program live, and now we will be transferring over. We will be hearing now from Princess Colegrove talking about one of the living houses here at the site. Thank you again, everyone, so much for joining us today. All you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Princess Colegrove, and I am one of the interpreters here for the Sumeg Village up at Patrick's Point State Park. I am Hupa, Yurok, and Karuk. So on my Hupa side, I'm from the villages of Sewanalden, Taikimisting, and Medilden. And on my Yurok side, I am from the villages of Chapek, Espel, and I'm a descendant of this place, the Sumeg Village. And so for me, I've grown up here, being involved in everything, and I'm very lucky to have grown up here and to grow up in a time not knowing anything but ceremony and not knowing a time without it. And so I'm here just to kind of share with everybody about our houses and about our way of life. And so I'm going to talk about this house here, and we call it a living house, but in Yurok it's called an othliat, and it's made of a redwood. So we never cut our redwood trees down, but when they fall with such force that they split into things that look like these planks. And so they're chiseled down to more of a plank look. And so all of this is redwood, and it's tied with hazel sticks. These are the hazel sticks. It can also be tied with grapevine. Hazel sticks grow towards sunlight. So if it's in a really shady area and there's sunlight that peeks through, it grows towards that. So you get these really long hazel sticks, and we cook them over the fire and twist them so that they are able to create like a rope and to tie these houses. You can see on this house that there is some nylon rope holding it together as of right now. We are still working on it. So in a living house, it wouldn't just be you, your mother, and your siblings. It would be your mother and her sister and her children, and your cousins and family members. And in Yurok, there's actually no word for a first cousin. Those are your brothers and sisters. You grow up together. You grow up in the same house. And so on these houses, we have like a porch, just like how we have nowadays. We have steps and wood porches, and some wrap around the whole house and some go different ways. But here we have a rock porch. And so the rock porch, like Skip mentioned earlier, the rocks are brought from the ocean, the rivers, the mountains, different places. And this is where we do our daily, I guess they would be like chores or our daily life things. And so we have a lot of basket materials because we make a lot of baskets, like burden baskets or acorn baskets or cooking bowls. And so that's kind of what we would have out here on our porch. When we gather bear grass, we dry it in the sun and it bleaches it. And so you bleach it on your porch. And this is kind of where your kids will be, your family will be, and you spend most of your days. And along the inside, should we go in? Okay, so when we go in the house, traditionally women go in backwards because traditionally we wear maple bark skirts. And so you kind of just go in out of respect of yourself, and men go in head first. So And so this is the inside of our house. Is it clear enough?
Yeah, it actually looks really good.
Okay, so this is the inside of the house. And you can see down below, there's kind of a pit. Our other interpreter, Maya, will talk about a little bit later. So down in here is where the family sleeps, eats, spends their time together. And everything that we learn from our family through oral traditions. And so this is kind of like where you learn those things, where you tell stories and where you learn how to weave and how to make acorns and how to do all of those things. And along the sides, you can see it goes all the way around. This is kind of a storage space. So it's where baskets are kept, where fish, salmon, acorn is, and so that it's not right in your living area, it's kind of in another area and can be reached very easy. And you can see that there are steps, and so it's just kind of some have ramps, some have steps, and this one has steps, and so that's how you get down in there. There's a fire pit, so that is so we keep warm in the winter, and so we have light, and you can see it on the top that there's kind of an opening. And so a long time ago we would have these really long sticks, and we would push them to the top and shuffle them right or left to sunlight or to let the smoke out. It kind of let the smoke kind of air out. And you can also see along the sides that there's ventilation and to let the smoke out, and it's all really strategically done. Our houses, like I said, they're called an Othwiat. Yurok people call themselves Oth, and our redwood canoes are called Othwiat. And it's because we're all interconnected. We're all living things because we believe redwood trees are living and they do have a spirit and they are one of us. And so in our houses we have a heart, lungs, a rib cage. My grandpa used to tell me that the opening in the top was a belly button. And so this is just kind of what the inside looks like. You can even go back outside. So if you come alongside, you can kind of see how the ends of these are chiseled, and we have see again the sun roof kind of is on the top, and that's what it looks like from the outside. Along the side, just like on our porch, we have rocks, and that's to kind of keep in the summertime to keep it kind of cool inside, and in the wintertime to keep the heat in when it's very cold outside. And so you can see the rocks aligned all the way around the house. So you can see here also that there is the chisels, and on the end of this, and so in our houses, like I said, this is where we learn a lot of our lessons, and so we have a lot of ceremonies that take place within. A long time ago would be our own house, and so when that happens, the house is deconstructed, the walls are taken down, and we invite people to come dance with us. But Maya will get kind of into that a little bit more. So
All right, we can move on. Thank you very much, Princess. Appreciate it. Now we'll be moving on to Maiya Rainer, our third and final interpreter of our event today. And when we finish with this next segment, we will move into our Q&A. So if you have any questions for our interpreters here, please feel free to type them into the Q&A. We are not going to have time to answer all of them. I think we have over 100 in there already. But we will be picking out some of those questions and getting you the answers that you so desperately desire. So here we are with Maiya Rainer for our next segment.
Hi, my name is Maya, and I'm Yurok Village, and I'm also Taos Pueblo, Apache, and I am a descendant of this village or this place. Today I'm going to be talking about the dance house. So previously you just seen a living house, and this is pretty much the same thing, just deconstructed. So you kind of see behind me there's benches all along, and it goes kind of all the way around the house. Those are the walls of the house. So these big logs right here would be the corners of the house. The corners of the house. And so these rocks down here also represent what Princess was saying about the porch, and that go all the way around the house. So this is a deconstructed house. So it's the same thing as over there, just taken apart. And this is where we do ceremony. So when we have ceremony and we take our houses apart, they're not something we leave open like this. This is because we're having to put it back together and open it various times in the year for ceremony, and we still use these houses today. And this is the house we mainly use for ceremony during the summer. And so right now it looks a little overgrown down in the pit, and that's due to us not having ceremony this year, and there's been kind of a gap. So we haven't been able to be down here inside the pit, which would be me and Princess and her auntie and her grandmother that would be cleaning up the pit, and which is a lot of work. But down here we have two different ceremonies here at Sumeg. We have a Chapira walk, which is a flower dance for a young girl, and she's becoming a woman, and a ceremony for a young baby, a brush dance. A baby that is praying for a good life and can also be sick, so they're here to pray for the baby. And so these two dances are very important. And for my personal experience is I've gone to brush dances, I've been a part of brush dances, and Princess has too, and Skip has too, and they're super kind of life-changing. They're very important to us. They're like a whole new experience, and it just makes you feel good being there and being around people, and we all have the same we want all the same end result, this child to be healthy and happy, and this girl to have a long happy life. And so for me, it's exciting coming here, and it's exciting to be able to work here and be here in the houses and talk about our lives and our culture as a living culture. And I actually had my flower dance here, so I slept right there in the pit in a sleeping bag. So that was a cool experience, and so I kind of think of it as like my house, because that's where I lived for a few days. And so that's my personal experience to this house, and a lot of other people have lots of different experiences in this house. And I don't know how much time I have.
You have plenty of time if there's any more features you want to show us or any more stories you want to share.
So I'm not sure exactly what Princess went over, but there are body parts in these houses too, and they're tied. This house is tied with the same hazel as the house over there, and so this ramp usually wouldn't be here. They would have to lower the girls down and kind of get down, because it would be closed just like inside the house. It'd be the same way, but this ramp was put here so that we could have elders and
people with disabilities to be able to participate in our ceremonies that normally wouldn't be able to because they have that kind of barrier of having to be left down into the pit during ceremony. And so that's there so that we have everyone participate and be a part of our ceremony.
Princess did tell us about the body parts, but she did not show them to us. If you would like to show them to us.
The one body part that I can point out from this house is this one right here, the belly button that goes through the top.
Is ironically the one that she pointed out.
Oh, great. I don't remember the other ones.
That's okay. We can move into questions. We have a lot of them if we want to move into questions.
We can do questions.
Okay. Yes. So we have about 20 minutes left, and we have a ton of questions. So I'm going to start from the top, and I'll come around to you. You guys can sit on those benches if you want. I think most of these got answered within the program. Can you just tell us one more time where we are today?
Sumeg Village in Princess State Park in Trinidad, California.
So we have a question here that says, were there mammoths when there were Native Americans? Someone like to address that?
Not in this area. I don't know.
But yeah, there were humans that lived during time of the mammoths. I think there is archaeological evidence that supports that. I know that what's cool about indigenous cultures to me is that a lot of times they have in their language like different animals that aren't either here anymore or are almost kind of like too grand to think about. Our Karuk neighbors described like a woolly rhinoceros that used to terrorize communities a long time ago over in that neck of the woods. So that's just what made me think of, yeah, those times overlapped.
Well, that is in our rivers, the sturgeon. They're considered dinosaurs to us. They look like dinosaurs.
Yeah, sturgeons are a living fossil. They have not evolved since the time of dinosaurs. Does somebody want to talk about the hole, the door hole? Why is the door a hole in the wall? What if a person can't fit through it?
So a long time ago, we had very good diets. We were very active every day. We did a lot of heavy lifting, those kinds of things. So generally, I mean, the size of the hole, depending on whose house it was, could vary, but generally they were that size, and we crawl in because it's low to the ground, so like a bear can't get through it, and different animals can't climb in there, and there are doors. These houses don't have doors in them at the moment, but there are round doors that kind of go in there, kind of like a plug or that kind of shape. And so, yeah, generally everybody could get in and out.
Excellent. Yeah.
So the round of the door, when you learn about our stories and stuff, there's creation stories and elements that I don't always share, but there is the tie to those stories. Our stories that we have an oral tradition, so nothing's written down traditionally a long time ago. And so what I've been told about the connection between that round circle is a connection between the red-headed woodpecker and how our cultures, Yurok culture and the culture of the red-headed woodpecker, the pileated woodpecker, they're intertwined. They're together. You kind of can't separate the Yurok people from their relationship with the red-headed woodpecker. So much so as we come out of a door shaped just like theirs. Every day they come out brand new. The way they protect their family. If you watch the red-headed woodpecker, they model a lot of healthy relationship skills that humans can learn from by being in a healthy relationship with them. So
beautiful. Thank you, Skip. We have a lot of questions here about food. What did you eat? Where did you find it? What animals? Where was it kept? How was it prepared? all kinds of questions about food. Does anybody want to take that right up to start?
So we ate what we had accessible. So just like now we can go to a grocery store and get beans or get rice and get those kinds of things. We didn't have that. So we would hunt and gather and trade a lot of food. So we would trade with like Kupa people, and we would trade acorns for seaweed or surfish and those kinds of things. And we are right along the ocean. The ocean isn't too far from here. And so we would go down there and gather salmon, we would gather surfish, we'd gather seaweed, we'd gather eels and clams and mussels and all kinds of those foods. And generally they would be smoked so they could be stored longer. But that was kind of always going on. And through certain times of year, you could get different types of food. We also had elk, and we have a lot of acorns, like I said, which is a big source that we use. It has a lot of protein in it and a lot of the nutrients that you need for daily life. And so when we fast, we still use acorns all the time. We still eat them all the time because they're so high in protein and nutrients, and they have good fats in them. And so those we would have a lot of because they can be stored for a long period of time. You let them dry, and then you crack them, then you make them into a powder, and then you make them into kind of like a mush that's kind of like cream of wheat or oatmeal. And so we had a lot of those, but other than that, it was a lot of fishing and hunting and those kinds of foods that we would eat.
Excellent. We have a couple of questions just about technology. We have one that said, you know, did you guys have phones here? We have one that said, did you have television? Tell us a little bit about this time period and what life was like at that time. You want to take it?
Handle that one there.
Cool.
Yeah, so pre-contact, pre-European existence on this continent, this geographic location now called North America, there was no electricity. There was no like metal products or tools. I do know that the Ojibwe people had copper, and that was a sacred metal for them, and they used it in their way. I don't know much about that, but no, Yurok people, we didn't have televisions or video games or any kind of steel tools. So the tools we did have are still to this day the sharpest tools in the shed. It's our understanding and about being in a healthy relationship with the world. And one of those things that we need to reestablish a bigger, grander, healthier relationship with is the element fire. So fire was the premier tool that we cooked with it. We held our ceremonies with it, so we prayed with it. We healed our community with it like medicine. We engaged fire into the forest, and when the forest tells you to do it and why the forest tells you to do it, and it creates a fire resilient landscape is what it's called, when fire itself becomes a healthy part of the forest, so the forest can then actually catch on fire and not totally go out of control. So fire was the sharpest tool in the shed, and we still use it today, and it's something that's sustainable, organic, and I'm really passionate about. So we also had tools like, if you looked at the sides of the houses here, or any cut spot, if you see a log and you're like, how did they cut that log to that length or to that shape and size? Again, they used fire and elk horn antlers. So the elk horn antler, you'd use fire to burn it, and then you'd use the elk horn antler to chisel it, and then you flip it over and do the same thing, burn it, chisel it, until the piece would then snap off, and you would cut, that's how you cut it to length. So elk horn adzes and tool blades were very prominent in Yurok culture communities.
Excellent. Great answer. So you answered this a little bit early on in the program, but I did see a couple questions about, is this a recreated or is this a original place, and what happened to the people that lived in this area?
This is not an original site. There are no more original Yurok villages with original structures. The 1965 flood in California, Klamath River Valley, washed away the last original structure. These structures were created in 1990, so they're about 30 years old. And the people in this area were hit by, in California, so we're celebrating California Native American Day. California natives, we had a population over 1 million pre-contact. And in less than 200 years of contact here in California, we are down to 210,000, I think, something like that. It's like 800,000 Native American people were either forcefully removed or killed. And a lot of times it was vigilante militias that were just killing people to get them off the land. And they did it oftentimes during Yurok ceremonies or cultural ceremonies. So it's like finding someone in their church, going to their church and wiping them all out while they're praying. And unfortunately, that's kind of ignorance and violent atrocities are still happening. And people have that capacity to this day to target people when they're in their prayer spaces, just because they're different worldview, different culture. So that's something that today I'm hoping to help heal and bring awareness to that. It's like bad things did happen to Native American people not that long ago in California. And so by us being resilient enough and strong enough to even share some of our most sacred knowledge that survived genocide is a special thing. I'm happy to be here and be part of this. That answered the whole question.
Yeah, that was spectacular. We had a question about kind of the like structure and relation with other tribes. So like, was there a chief? Was there someone in charge? And did you essentially fight with other tribes, or what was the relationship like with other tribes? And you talked a little bit about trading, but this particular question says, was there wars?
No. Generally, everybody worked together. We got along really well with everybody. We weren't a violent people. Us and the Hupa people, the Karuk people, the Tawa people, the Wiyot people, we all kind of work together and we help each other, help one another and do those things. There are things that would happen, but they wouldn't lead to like a big like war type of setting or type of event. We don't have a chief or those kinds of things. We have different people who play different roles, and every role is super important. We have our medicine people, we have dance leaders, we have regalia holders, we have our dancers, we have the people who cook and the people who hunt for our ceremonies, we have people who just come to pray and send out good thoughts, and we have our elders who have the most knowledge. And so everybody plays a really important role. It's not anybody is really higher than the next person. Everybody is kind of in sync and working together, and we all support each other. So if you are lucky enough to own a canoe or a boat of some sort, it's a responsibility to help the person who doesn't, or help that person get to where they need to be. And if you have extra elk meat or extra deer meat or extra fish and somebody else doesn't, it's a responsibility to help that person. And so everyone kind of balances each other out in helping one another and being there as a support system for everybody. Like I said, we did a lot of trading. We still do a lot of trading. And so that's how everybody works. There's trading going on. There's a lot of different ways that we work with a lot of other tribes.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
There was also, like, it's not like we were totally peaceful. There were disputes between people maybe in the same family or things like that. They would have stick games. They would the men would go out and they'd play sticks, and that's a whole nother topic. But that's some way they would settle their disagreements, and sometimes people would pay settlement. So say something happened in two different families and they just didn't want to be around each other, they would pay Indian payment. So they would give them maybe a bunch of fish or actual money or something to settle their dispute, and then after that they don't talk about it. That's taken care of.
Too,
yeah,
on that. That's a really, there is in education, American mainstream education often focuses on Native American tribes that were more eastern from here. And so the different cultures, humans are humans, there were disagreements, that's part of being human, being flawed like that. But what's so neat and that's misunderstood and oftentimes overlooked is that the native cultures in California specifically, that I'm talking about here, had very complex government systems and ways of handling negativity. There was a thing that we have that is called a war dance, but it's not a war dance. It's to stop wars from happening. There are procedures and ceremonies, and like our other interpreters said, there's ways to bring what's called restorative justice to a discrepancy before it gets to the point where lives are taken or village property is damaged. Another thing I want to point out is that in California, we live in one of the most like biologically diverse and like one of the most food secure places in the globe. There are pre-contact, there was so much food here and resources that we weren't trying to fight for resources. And a lot of times human conflicts are about resources. And so we didn't have that element of attitudes.
Excellent. So we are running low on time, so I know we have a lot of great questions in here, and I do encourage you all who are watching, Skip, Maya, and Princess, all do Facebook Live programs in the North Coast Redwood District Facebook program or Facebook page. So there's a lot more information. They go into a lot more depth in each of these topics. So if you want to learn more, be sure to check that out. All of those are archived on our YouTube page as well, so you can learn a lot more about some more of the details of these things, even though we're running low on time. I do have one more question for you guys, and I'd like each of you to answer this if that's okay. How do you feel working here, and like what does it mean to you to be doing this work? You want to start, Skip? Make our way. Spectacular.
It is really great and an honor to be a part of the California State Parks Recreation. It's also very challenging because there's a lot of hurt still in Native communities, and there's still a lot of misunderstanding and misjudgments coming from non-Native communities. So as a cultural interpreter here at the park, you're right in the middle, and so it's a wonderful place to be, but it's challenging in a lot of ways. But I'm happy to be here.
No. I definitely did not think I'd be working here. I think it was a few months after I got out of high school. Me and Princess both were a little skeptical, but it turned out to be something that helped both of us grow and like as speakers. And we were speakers before. We did presentations since we were around 12 years old, and Princess did them for longer. But for me, it's been kind of like a growth experience, and I've been told that by many people, and that my grandmother is really proud of me for being here, and that it's just been kind of like, it kind of changed my view a little bit on that people are not always looking at both sides. It's more of their perspective is a lot different, and I seen a little bit of that when I was younger, but not as much as I've seen here now. But I think that this is just a great place to be, have my first job and work here with some pretty great people that are willing to support you and help you in any way that you need. And I think that this is just a great opportunity to be here and talk about kind of just like my life and my culture. So that's that.
Well said, Maya. And last but not least.
For me, I really enjoy being here.
I grew up here. I grew up being here in the summertime with my grandparents and my aunties and my cousins. And so it's a really different experience than what I've had previously. Like Maya said, we have done a lot of speaking in different settings, but here it's not really fact. It's more of just what we know and how we've grown up learning things and how we can view this place and how we get to share it. And it's really awesome because for a long time there wasn't that Native representation here. There was a lot of other non-Native people or people not from this area that would read the book and tell the story in the book. But it's really cool to not only have 1, 2, but like 3 Yurok interpreters here that can tell the story of this place and that have been here for a long time and that have attended ceremonies here and have done events here and worked with the people from this place. I've done a lot of work with my grandfather and different people, and so it's also being able to work with them and what they want told and how they want the village to be seen and the stories that come with that. And so it's just been really cool to be out here to do that, not only for us but for our people and for the elders that want us to be able to talk about this. I really enjoy being here.
Well said. So I have one last little piece I think might all connect a couple of questions together. Do you know the name of the master builder who started putting this place together?
There was a group of elders that were working on it. I know only a couple of them. I know Walt Lara was one. Oral, in our culture, we don't really bring up names of people passed on.
We don't have to.
Out of respect.
That's totally fine.
There's not very many that are still alive that were here working on it. I know that there was an artist, there was elders that taught 2 young crews, and the people on those young crews are still around. And so David Reese is one of the gentlemen that I can remember off the top of my head. And he did all the artwork, concept artwork for this place, and he's still around doing art. So
that's excellent. And I was hoping that Walt was a part of this project because another question was, what's the pin you're wearing? Can you show us your pin, Maya?
Yeah. So this is kind of a joke to me, but not like a joke. I just put it on there because I thought it would be funny and make people ask the question who that is. Princess also has one, but I'm playing solo. But that's Walt. That's a picture of him. I also have a picture on my phone case of him.
And can you tell us, so helped with the project, but how else do we know him?
Oh, he's one of the master builders of Sumeg.
Yeah.
Walt is also my grandfather. He's the reason I'm here working, and he's the person that kind of has guided me into who I am and what I know about this place. And so he has played a big part, not only in building, but the story of the place and the things that me, Maya, and Skip know, and the story of this place and what they want to be told.
Awesome.
I second that. I grew up and he taught me a lot.
Spectacular.
I can actually jump in really quick. He's a legend, and not just Native communities, but in the logging community, and Native American legal representation at the DC level, Washington DC. He's one of the reasons the Yurok tribe exists is because of the knowledge that his mom shared with him. He passed it on to an entire community and then rallied together, continue going together as a community. So he's a very instrumental player in a lot of young men's lives, young people's lives, and really represents the elders that taught him well.
Excellent. And that is all the time we have for our program today. Is there any parting words you would like to share as we say goodbye to everyone? All right.
I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining us again today. Check out our Facebook page and our YouTube page for more from Maya, Princess, and Skip. There's tons to learn. They have so much knowledge to share. Also be on the lookout for their Porch programs. If you are a student or a teacher, you can have them beam into your classroom and bring you a personalized program from this place or from our studio as well. All kinds of great information coming from these 3 amazing people. Thank you all again so much for joining us. And we are signing off from the beautiful Sumeg Village in Patrick's Point State Park. here in Northern California. Thank you all again so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.